For the second year in a row, can the Arizona Cardinals go 2-0? They kick things off for the first time in front of the Red Sea at State Farm Stadium on Sunday, welcoming Captain Kirk and the Minnesota Vikings. It's Bo, it's Alex, it's Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it. Rise up, Red Sea. It's the Locked On Cardinals podcast. Bo, Brack, Alex Clancy hanging out with you. Give us a follow at Locked On AZ Cards. Please subscribe to our new YouTube channel. Things taking off. We appreciate everybody tuning in, watching, commenting, leaving a like, everything. I mean, we are all in on YouTube. A couple of old farts like us watching YouTube, you know, getting down with the lingo and all that good stuff. Smash the like button and all that good stuff. We're cool. We're hip. We got a big game to break down. But first, I got to tell you that this episode is brought to you by the brand new Locked On NFL Draft podcast. It relaunches on September 20th. Next week, you get your new host, Eric Crocker. He brings the player scouting. Ryan Tracy brings the analytics. Follow the Locked On NFL Draft podcast on YouTube, the Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcast. But we're not talking draft. We're not talking about the kids that play on Saturday. We're talking about the guys that are lining up on Sunday and kicking off from State Farm Stadium. Can the Arizona Cardinals, Alex, can they do it? And please don't answer me right away because we got to draw this thing out for like 25, 30 minutes. Can the Arizona Cardinals put together back-to-back spectacular performances right out of the gates?
It'll be fun to watch. I mean, you got to think that a team coming into town has pretty much the same offensive makeup as the Tennessee Titans. You know, two great wide receivers, a stellar running back, and a quarterback with limitations. You know, Kirk Cousins, you could probably say his floor is a little bit higher, at least equal to Ryan Tannehill, but Ryan Tannehill's ceiling is, you know, astronomically higher than Kirk Cousins. But it'll be fun to watch because this isn't a trap game because it's only week 2, but it's like, man, you could get the win completely taken out of your sails if you don't take care of business at home against the Vikings.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to break everything down as far as this contest is concerned. We talked to Luke Braun yesterday. Highly recommend you check out that video yesterday on our YouTube channel. Check out the podcast. He gives just straight insight that you're not going to get anywhere else. And what I really took away from it is that the Minnesota Vikings are an absolute, as far as their offensive line is concerned, it is an incredible liability for Kirk Cousins, for that run game finding any success. We talk about Dalvin Cook. He's a top 5 running back in this league. But I do agree with you. It is oddly similar to the team that they faced in week 1. But here's the difference. You don't have 2 new coordinators. You've got Clint Kubiak. He's the OC there in Minnesota. And then you've got the same guys that were calling the defensive plays in the same spot for the Vikings. So there is a little continuity there. It's week 2. They came off a bad loss to the Cincinnati Bengals. And as you mentioned, Kirk Cousins, he played a little bit better in the face of pressure, and he faced a lot of it just like Ryan Tannehill did, but he threw for over 300 yards, and he was a little bit more efficient, you know, with the football, getting it out. I think I saw that Kirk Cousins was hit 8 times, Ryan Tannehill was hit 9 times. And of those hits, obviously, Tannehill was taken down 6 times for a sack, while Cousins was able to get rid of the football. He was sacked 3 times in that contest, so did a little bit better just getting rid of the pigskin. So that's what you're kind of staring down. And there is, they practice together. The Tennessee Titans first team offense really didn't have any reps together in preseason, and they really didn't have anything as far as reps together before week 1. Significant reps with Julio Jones implementing him and a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at we compared this a little bit last week. So last year they had the 49ers on the road, they got a W. And then they beat Washington football team at home, and then they just lay a big fat egg against Detroit, where Kyler throws 3 picks, didn't look great, and then you go to Carolina with Budda Baker out, and you lose a game with Teddy Bridgewater.
Every safety was out.
Yeah, that's right. Chris Banjo was the starting safety. That's right. So it's kind of the same this year, where you get the excitement of starting 2-0 last year in one game because of how it played out. The Cardinals look like a Super Bowl team in week 1. They look like they were just in actual world beaters. And then you have this week 2 game where it's a little bit better opponent, than Detroit or Carolina. And because at any point, this offense could go off. If the pass rush isn't there for the Cardinals, the secondary is going to have to play against two of the better receivers in the league. So it's kind of a similarity to last year, where if you start 2-0 and you have Jacksonville on the road with that dumpster fire over there, you could be cooking with gas very early before playing the Rams, San Francisco, and Cleveland in successive weeks.
Yeah, we're going to get into our players of the game, of course. We're going to get back into our predictions. We gave our predictions yesterday, so if you missed them, we'll give them to you before the end of the show. Our Friday 5, right? We're going to get into our Friday 5. Damn it, we don't have any of the sexy graphics this time, but we will give you, of course, the betonline.ag spread, the total, the over-under, and we'll get into a little prop bet that we feel like is one that you should probably throw down on. Alex, I will give him credit where it's due. He nailed the prop bet. It was the over-under for Kyler Murray rush yards, 43.5 last week. Of course, he did find the end zone, but he didn't approach 43.5 on the ground. So we'll see what another prop bet looks like for the Arizona Cardinals in this contest in our Friday 5. But, it is interesting because they were firing on all cylinders last week. And if they slip up, if they take a step back in one area, it's just like, well, yeah, then the offense, it's not going to slip back. If the pass rush isn't there, or if the defensive secondary that we saw in week 1, if it doesn't look like the same one we saw in the opener, you just have to imagine that, look, if they don't have as awesome performance as they did against the Titans, that it wouldn't, the odds are they're not going to just completely all fall apart, right? I mean, if it's not going to be Kyler Murray hitting in the pass game, he's sure, like 5 total touchdowns is pretty absurd, but like he could still have a good game. And if the defense isn't as spectacular, you know what I mean?
The Cardinals are never going to play as well as they did again in week 1. Like, things aren't going to go that well. I mean, you may get one of those a year. And sure, balls will go. You're like, that wasn't a game where balls bounced their way. It wasn't that. They just completely dominated a team that at this point you didn't think they'd have any business dominating. That's not realistic to think that that's going to happen every week. So, yeah, there's going to be issues more than what we saw in week 1. How you deal with the issues when you need to deal with those issues in real time, that's what determines good teams from not. And, I mean, the Cardinals, they could do no wrong. Chandler Jones made Taylor Lewan look like Bo Brock. Like, seriously, it's true. Like, right. He was just like, you know what? You're a high school left tackle. You're not getting paid $80 million. You're not an all-pro. I'm going to absolutely punish you. That's not going to happen every week, even though there's another porous offensive line that the Cardinals are going to face. It's going to be fun. And you're right. There's going to be, on both sides, you're going to figure out when the going gets tough, which side of the football you can trust. So if not both, but it's rarely both. Like all the way at the top,
It's establishing trust, absolutely. And interesting. You took a knock at my blocking prowess, which is it's completely fine with me. Not a big man, but if it was me though, the difference between Taylor Lewan and if it was me or who it is actually going to be on Sunday potentially for the Minnesota Vikings, who it's Rashad Hill at left tackle, who was a guy who was a backup last year. You got to think that the Vikings are going to help because the Titans didn't. They're like, hey, here's our Pro Bowl caliber. We just paid Taylor Lewan. We're going to let him be on an island or on the left tackle spot, and we're just going to let him handle with who. If it's Chandler Jones or J.J. Watt, he's just going to block them. But you got to imagine if Minnesota does that, Mike Zimmer needs to be fired the next day.
Yeah,
because that's a fireable offense. But so you have to imagine it's either going to be them chipping with a tight end. It's going to be a running back getting in there and help. It might be an extra offensive lineman. They might have 6 offensive linemen. I don't know what it's going to be, but you can't imagine they're going to let Chandler Jones run amok. But I will give BJ Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator, a lot of credit for getting some one-on-one matchups for Chandler Jones in that Titans game. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and you look at it, and you did a really good job over the past week clipping up some video clips and showing like real spotlighted moments. And I tweeted out right after it happened, but when you double team Chandler Jones and or JJ Watt, Isaiah Simmons is going to be a problem. Like if you, like, he's going to be a problem. He took Derrick Henry and he said, "Sir, this 1 yard you will not get to get into the end zone." He just stood up in absolute Adonis from the running back position, because you know what Isaiah Simmons is? Younger, stronger, faster than Derrick Henry, which is unbelievable to say, but he's 2 out of the 3 for sure. But when you look at the attention that Chandler Jones will get on Sunday, because Mike Zimmer doesn't want to lose his job, at least in week 2. And what J.J. Watt will get because he's wearing 99 on an opposing team's jersey, Vance Joseph's going to eat. Like, they didn't have that last year, and they had one of the best blitz packages in the NFL. They didn't blitz on Sunday. They didn't blitz. It was all just man-on-man. I'm going to beat your guy to the quarterback. So, I mean, Isaiah Simmons, I'm so excited to see what the new iteration of him is going to be like.
Yeah, let's continue. Yeah, let's continue to look at some of these matchups, and let's also look at a couple players that we didn't see a lot from week 1, or hear a lot from week 1, because of all the unbelievable performances from the Arizona Cardinals. We'll get into who we want to see more from come Sunday in Glendale. It's Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alex was recently on a work trip, so he didn't have a whole lot of time. I don't even think that the hotel offered a continental breakfast, so he
didn't.
He just had to rely on Old Faithful, with the most delicious protein bar none, on the market, Built Bar. It's where tasty and nutrition, it's where they meet together for one perfect little treat. It's going to help you find your fitness, your weight goals, whatever it may be. Bring that little Built Bar along with you on the journey, because it's going to only help you. 9 delicious flavors you can always rely upon. Figure out which one you like the best. Coconut, cherry barcia, mint brownie, double chocolate, salted caramel, strawberry, orange, cookies and cream, and German chocolate. 17 to 18 grams of protein. You got calories ranging from 130 to 180. 4 to 5 grams of sugar, 4 to 5 grams of net carbs. Right now, go to Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15. Get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. Back here, Friday edition, Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Brought to you by the new Locked On NFL Draft Show with Ryan Tracy and Eric Crocker. That's going to fire up next week. Start to break down some of the biggest prospects in college football. But before that happens, the Arizona Cardinals have a game, potentially go 2-0. Did you know that the 38 points the Arizona Cardinals scored tied the most points that they've scored under Cliff Kingsbury?
It's crazy.
So that tied. It had
Is
to
it
have been
Atlanta?
Dallas.
Oh, Dallas. Oh, yeah.
Dallas,
they put up 38 points when Kyler Murray completed 9 passes.
They did. That was kind of a stranger path to that many points. But I heard that stat today, and I was like, I had to think about it. Yeah, they've never eclipsed 40 under Cliff, but 38 they've done that. They did that the previous season, and they did it, of course, in week 1. Just looking, kind of scanning, they did 38 against Dallas. They did 37 in the OT victory over the Seahawks, and then in the first season they eclipsed 30 a couple times, but never got up to 38. Oh yeah, they got up to 38 against the Cleveland Browns. So that was the day that they beat good old Baker Mayfield, and Kyler Murray became the best Oklahoma quarterback right now in the NFL. So I was kind of checking it out. J.J. Watt played 72% of the snaps. He's going to be key as far as slowing down the run game again. Just such a great run defender. And he was also the one that kind of put Chandler Jones in a good position as far as commanding, more attention from the defense. And Chandler Jones was getting those one-on-one matchups. I saw Lecky Fotu a lot when I was breaking down that film. He only played 27% of the snaps, but I just saw him moving guys out there on the field. I mean, he just looks like a beast in his limited play. I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of Lecky Fotu. You have to imagine, Alex, especially because they put him in on offense with J.J. Watt and the Mega Watt package, that they just know this is a strong man.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what happens when you draft from big schools. Yeah. That's what happens when you're not, FCS hunting. The fact that Steve Keim drafted Lecky Fotu and Rashard Lawrence in the second round. They got that second round pick from the DeAndre Hopkins trade, right? Where they swapped picks. That's what happens. LSU and Utah. And Utah. That's what happens. Guys are more ready to play at the NFL level. Now, sure, they were both, rotational guys at best last year, but we saw some pop, and Rashard Lawrence got injured towards the end of the season. But, man, if draft picks can work, it just shows texture. It shows that that's how teams are built.
And speaking of which, I mean, we see 91% of the snaps played on defense from Marco Wilson, who played great. He had a pass breakup against Julio Jones. I don't know if he was ever credited for it. You had Rondale Moore. He was an absolute force in the offense. I think it was Craig Harris that mentioned he had over 60 yards and 50 of them were after he made the catch. So he was making the ball in his hands. I mean, if you got the ball in his hands, he was making plays. And then you had Zaven Collins. When we talk about guys when we want to see more out of, he didn't play that much. He didn't play that much. But I was curious if you think that was a product of Derrick Henry being a big running back, and Jordan Hicks, it was more necessary for him to be on the field as a run stopper. And Zaven Collins, I mean, does that mean we see kind of the same blueprint from last week and not a whole lot of the first round pick again this week?
Maybe don't name a starter in May.
Yeah, but it didn't seem to play a role in it. I mean,
no. I mean, Jordan Hicks has really surprised everybody. I think that when Steve Keim named Zaven Collins a starter, he wasn't seeing, Jordan Hicks taking this step. This is first year in Phoenix, Jordan Hicks that we're seeing right now. He's a tackle machine. He knows the defense better than anybody. And you might be easing him in. And also, you may not want to play him when you're up 3 scores. It could be a mixture of a bunch of different things. Even though it'd be a perfect time for him to get reps, the last thing you want is your first round pick to get injured in the fourth quarter when you're up 20 points.
Sure. Yeah. I
Who knows?
That.
I mean, this is, again, that could be a total anomaly. You could play 75 or 80% of the snaps. It's week 1. We'll find out week 3, week 4 with the trends when they really start to happen when we get through the first quarter of the season.
So, talking about a couple of things that we wanted to see, Tay Gowan was a guy that was inactive, 6th round pick out of Central Florida. I don't know. I mean, we'll see if he's active. The secondary didn't seem like it needed any help out there. We'll see who did decide to dress out of the 46. But I mean, pretty solid performances across the board from the young guys. As much as we want to see more from the first round pick, and if we have to wait on that, and then that pop and Zaven Collins pops, in week 5, could just work out perfectly. I mean,
but the question, real quick, is like, if there's no pass rush, is it going to be the same with the secondary? I mean, it's a question you got to ask. And then number 2, in a close game, can you run the ball? Because it didn't matter. Didn't matter. Like, James Conner looked like old James Conner. Like, there's no question about that. I mean, he looks like a 26. 26 is the prime year. Yeah. 26 is the maybe the last, like, quote unquote prime year. 26, 27. He looks like he's 7 feet tall, and he's an absolute brick house. He's so if he can stay healthy, they got some giddy up, and Chase Edmonds looked fine, but you didn't need Chase Edmonds to do anything. You didn't need James Conner to do anything except for eat clock, which is exactly why you need a big back in the backfield.
It was a pretty, I mean, offensively, it was pretty perfect as far as, you get 100 yards combined from those two. You get Chase Edmonds, if you combine his rushing and his receiving yards, 100 yards total. And then you as what you called for, you limited Kyler, and you really only leaned on him one play with his legs. I mean, really, for the rushing touchdown. I mean, there was the one play where he was able to, move around outside the pocket and complete the big third down toss to Rondale Moore. But other than that, he wasn't really in harm's way. So, can they replicate that against this defense that's going to be down Eric Henricks potentially? And the only guy that our guy Lucas Braun pointed out was Michael Pierce on the interior of that defense. Other than that, I mean, you got Danielle Hunter. Even if Danielle Hunter gets 2 sacks on Sunday, I'm not that concerned about it. Yeah,
I mean, Luke Braun seemed defeated. He did. Like, Luke Braun's a very funny, charismatic, goofy dude like us, and he just
an objective for the most part.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And he's, he asked us what was up with Cliff Kingsbury's offense. I couldn't answer. Like, what is Cliff? I don't know. It's kind of whatever it is. My moratorium is still true, though. I've made it 5 days. Sunday's going to be tough if things go wrong, but I'm going to be fine. It's going to be all the way 100% all the way through. Whatever 7 days times 24 is 168 hours. But Luke, he just seemed like, how do you lose to Cincinnati? And then you have to go to Minnesota. You have to go on the road across the country to play the Cardinals, who had their best game in a decade. Whatever. Obviously not, but like the best game in the last 5 years from 1 to 46 on game day. So it's all signs are pointing towards the Cardinals rolling, but that's exactly when the NFL just punishes your brain and says, you know what? There's no momentum week to week.
Yeah, it's a humbling league, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of you walk a little tall and you puff out your chest. Somebody's going to cut you out. They're going to take you out at the knee. So yeah, let's get into that real quick. We're going to do our Friday 5, and we're also going to get into what the Cardinals need to look out for. What could cause the team to kind of take an L potentially on Sunday. We'll get into that right before we get out of here. Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network. Please make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. You're subscribed to Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcast. And you're making sure anytime we drop content that you're getting a little ding from it. Looking at Sunday's bets, and we're going to break it down. The Arizona Cardinals are 3.5 favorites, 3.5-point favorites. Over 90% of the money was going on the Arizona Cardinals. Unbelievable. An unbelievable amount on the Arizona Cardinals. If you want to make a bet online. It's the fastest, easiest way to do it. Make any bet on pro college football action this season. Number one spot for it. With all the updated site interface, even more odds, even more props, even more contests, betonline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website, use your mobile device, sign up today, receive your 100% welcome bonus, double your initial deposit. So every dollar you put in, you get an extra buck added by BetOnline. Don't forget to use the promo code NFL100. That's NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers available for the 2021 football season. BetOnline, the fastest, easiest way to bet on all your sports action. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, wrapping things up. Got our Fast Friday. We'll get back into the spreads. We'll get into that 3.5. We'll get into the total on this game. We'll get into as far as the prop bet that we decided we want to highlight this week. But what would be the worst case scenario for the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday? Is it going to be this Minnesota Vikings figuring it out on the defensive side, or is it that offense that I got to imagine it's the offense with Kirk Cousins, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook?
The Cardinals offense still needs to put up points. Like, I feel like this game's going to be a lot uglier than people think it's going to be. A lot lower scoring. But 1 week does not a season make for offense, and this is going to be a nice little, bump up. You beat the first boss in Mario, and then now you're moving up to the second one. And the Minnesota's defense is obviously better than Tennessee because, it's just like, by default. But you need to see the offense still hum. And I think with Patrick Peterson there, if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, I'm putting Rondo more because they don't switch. Like what Luke Braun told us yesterday is the majority of the time that the corners don't switch sides. They're not running. They're playing zone. They're staying on their side of the field. And I'm putting Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk on Patrick Peterson's side the whole game. Just beat him with speed. And I think that's how the offense will it'll just keep the defense honest, and then you can do whatever you want. But I feel like Rondale Moore and Christian Kirk could eat if they put him, towards Patrick Peterson, who's lost his step. He can't really do what he used to be able to do with speedy receivers.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well for Patrick Peterson. I think somebody asked me recently what they thought a good game would be for Patrick Peterson, and it's like Patrick Peterson's big games were never really it was never him getting a pick or, obviously was getting a pick six. We hadn't seen one of those in a long time. It was more just kind of having a quiet day from the opposing team's number one wide receiver. And is that really possible for him to go step for step with number 10 DeAndre Hopkins? I don't think so. I don't think he can completely take him out of the game plan. They're not going to move him around as Braun pointed out, and it's more like an outside zone. So, is it going to be, you're not going to see Patrick Peterson pick up on any of those shifty guys, fast shifty guys. So he's not going to also take any of the responsibility for when the Cardinals are moving the chains and making big plays.
Well, and when he was the number one corner, it was that huge sham that you don't throw the ball to that side of the field. So he was never tested, and that made him great. But when you're great is when you're tested. And I don't understand. I've never understood that. Always throw at the number one. Who cares? Until he picks you off, what does it matter? And Patrick Peterson lived in that Deion Sanders world where it's still back then that, half the field is taken away because you don't throw the ball towards Patrick Peterson. And I just never, so that's why he always had quiet days, because his name preceded him before he walked on an opposing team's field, or home team's field, I guess.
Yeah. Locked On Cardinals, part of your Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get into our I guess, Friday 5 here. Check out some of the bets that you can make in this one. As I said, 3.5. The total of this game is 51. Alex and I, we took the Arizona Cardinals. We revealed our final score yesterday on the crossover podcast, and it was 31-17, I believe, or was it 30-17? So we both think the Arizona Cardinals covered this one easily. I think that's the bet to make. And then also the total, that's where it's going to be tough. Can Minnesota, they have enough firepower. 51.5, it's another big total for this game in back-to-back weeks. So we're going to see over 50 points scored in an Arizona Cardinals game between the two teams. Yeah,
I mean, I think this is a trap over here. I think it's probably going to be bet up to almost 52. It's probably going to go up a point. Minnesota wins by running the ball. And what happens when you run the ball? The clock goes out faster. And what happens when the clock runs out? You don't score any more points. I think 30-17, or 31-17 we both said, which will both, we'd both take the under there. I don't see them being able to throw all over this team with the pressure the Cardinals are going to put on them. So they're going to have to run the ball. They're going to have the best offense they're going to have is keeping Kyler Murray on the sidelines, and they're just going to have to eat as much clock as possible and hope Kirk Cousins doesn't make any mistakes.
You think both teams could score over 19.5 points?
I think one can.
That's one of the bets that's available. First team to 20. You think the Arizona Cardinals could be the first team to 20?
I mean, yeah, probably. It's especially if we're picking only one team to get to 20.
Yeah, because there's just not any good player props as far as I haven't seen anything just yet. But I think that the Arizona Cardinals obviously were the first team to 20 last week. They were the only team to 20 last week, so might be a safe bet there. You're looking at our Friday 5 here on Locked On Cardinals. Our players of the game. I mean, who do you like to be your player of the game, offensively and defensively?
Offensively, I'm going to ride with Christian Kirk. I've been out on Christian Kirk. I have. And, it wasn't necessarily fair for him last year. He was kind of thrown into this wide receiver 2 role, but didn't really know. Him as a wild card every week, where he's the guy that defenses forget about. He gets lost in zones, and he's just I'm gone. I'm gonna blow the top off this defense, especially with who they're playing against. If he's gonna be around Patrick Peterson, he could be in for another 2-touchdown game. We've seen it. We just don't see it often. But I'm going to say Christian Kirk. And then defensively, I'm ready for Isaiah Simmons. I'm ready for it. Because they're going to double-team Chandler Jones, and they're most likely going to double-team J.J. Watt. Isaiah Simmons is very good at a lot of things, and I hope that this season, his most important thing that he will be good at is ripping quarterbacks' heads off. I want to see pass rush Clemson Isaiah Simmons. That's the one I want to see. I don't want to see him in he is a missile. Look at what they did with oh my God, what's his name? Hassan Reddick last year. He could fit in Isaiah Simmons' pocket. Let Isaiah Simmons eat the way Hassan Reddick did last year. It'll be incredible. Imagine him being the scary guy in the second level and letting Zaven Collins dropping into coverage. It'd be magic.
Yeah, it's Isaiah Simmons is a great one. I think he's going to get a sack, and it's probably become coming up in the middle, in the teeth of that defense, and it's not going to be coming from the outside against because they're also soft at right in the guard spots for Minnesota. I think Chandler Jones can legitimately have 2 more sacks in this game. I do. I mean, he's going up against the ham sandwich at the left tackle. I mean, they did a good job moving Chandler Jones, who was doing left and right side of the line. So. Is it unfair to say Chandler Jones? But that's nobody would think that he was going to have back-to-back great weeks. But that anytime he's getting to a quarterback, that thing can come out. He's so good as far as forcing fumbles. He's forced 19 forced fumbles since 2016, since becoming an Arizona Cardinal. So I'm going to say Chandler Jones. Call me, a front runner or going chalk, whatever. Not being
At least you're choosing a player this time and not a coach, which I appreciate.
Exactly. Yeah, you're welcome. And then I think Rondale Moore. I think Rondale Moore is going to have his first Arizona Cardinals touchdown of his young career. And I was surprised that you didn't go to AJ Green, because I think AJ Green has potential in this game going against Bashad Breeland to make some big plays on the outside.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's more important that Isaiah Simmons gets there. AJ Green, he's gonna be old faithful. We saw he ran fine routes. He was as slow as he ever was, and he was still catching balls. You know what you're gonna get from it.
Yeah.
But Isaiah Simmons, has the potential to elevate this defense to an A- to A level. Like if Isaiah Simmons plays the way he did in college, in some, not against Pittsburgh or whoever they're playing, but plays at that level, this defense completely changes.
You know what this defense really reminds me of? Like in the 90s, like Mike Tyson. That might be too far because he was so dominant.
Yeah.
But just the heavyweight prize fighters that are knockout professionals, like they can knock out opposing offense. That's how good they are. They have that capability. Now we've yet to see what they look like when they struggle, and we will see that. Look, trust me, it's the NFL. I mean, it's an offensive game now. But they are knockout specialists. They have that ability with J.J. Watt. As you mentioned, Isaiah Simmons led the team in tackles. He had the pick. He had some big time plays in that game. And what's going to slow him down unless the offense for the Vikings is going to emphasize slowing him down. Then what are you going to do about the rest of the guys out there? And looking for another repeat performance from the secondary. We'll see what that looks like against some very talented wide receivers. You've got her. Somehow we ended up on the same. It's boring. We had the same prediction, 31-17 Arizona Cardinals in this game. I think it could even be uglier than that. And if it's an L, just fill up my mentions. I don't know if I deserve that for being drinking the Kool-Aid as heavily as I have. But it's been a fun week, that's for sure. We appreciate everybody that's tuned in, all the new listeners, all the new viewers. Thank you for checking out Locked On Cardinals. We're just getting started here. It's only week 2 of the season, so make sure you're subscribed. You're following along on all our social channels at BOBRACK, at Clancy's Corner. And look, let's enjoy this one. It's the first one in front of the Red Sea in a long time, like a full Red Sea. State Farm Stadium out there in Glendale. Enjoy the tailgating out on the great lawn. Eat some delicious food and drink some beers for your boys over at Locked On Cardinals. And let me tell you this, before we get out of here, betting on the NFL doesn't have to be a quick guessing game. If you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling, get the daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by betonline.ag, wherever you find podcasts. We will talk to you pregame show?
Yeah.
Pre-game show. All right. He's going to do it. Pre-game show before the game, Sunday afternoon, and of course, halftime right here. And we'll have our podcast post-game. Guys, have a great Saturday and rest of your Friday. We'll talk to you Sunday.